Taesung pressed his face against the observation window and stared at the massive space station below. Waypoint 7 looked like a giant metal flower floating in the darkness. Lights blinked along its arms and dozens of ships moved around it like busy insects. The boy had never seen anything so amazing in his 15 years of life. His father stood behind him, checking cargo manifests on a data pad. They were freight haulers traveling from world to world delivering supplies. Earth was their home, but they spent most of their time in space. This was their first visit to Waypoint 7, and Taesung could barely contain his excitement. The docking process took an hour. When they finally stepped off their small ship, Taesung's eyes went wide. The station was enormous inside. The ceiling stretched so high he could barely see it. Aliens of every shape and color walked through the crowded corridors. Some had 4 arms. Others had skin that glowed. A few floated in the air without any visible means of support. Taesung's father put a hand on his shoulder. The man's voice was gentle but firm when he spoke. He told his son to stay close and not wander off. The station was safe, but it was also easy to get lost. Taesung nodded, but his attention was already elsewhere. A merchant was selling glowing crystals that changed color when touched. Another booth displayed fruits that looked like they were made of liquid light. His father had to handle some business with the station administrator. He told Taesung to wait in the market area and stay out of trouble. The boy agreed eagerly. As soon as his father disappeared into the crowd, Taesung began exploring. The market was a maze of stalls and shops. Taesung wandered past vendors selling strange tools, exotic foods, and clothing made from materials he could not name. Most aliens ignored him. A few stared with curiosity. Humans were rare in this part of space. Many species knew about Earth, the dangerous death world where everything tried to kill you. They wondered how such a fragile-looking creature could survive there. Taesung stopped at a stall selling carved stones. The merchant was a tall being with blue skin and 4 eyes. She smiled at him and offered to show him her best pieces. He was about to decline when he heard screaming. The sound came from deeper in the market. People started running toward him, their faces twisted in terror. Taesung stepped back against the wall as the crowd surged past. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Then he saw her. A small alien girl stood frozen in the middle of the corridor. She had pale blue skin and large, frightened eyes. Her delicate hands were pressed against her mouth. She wore elegant robes with silver thread, the kind that marked someone important, but right now she just looked terrified. Taesung looked past her and his blood went cold. Something moved in the shadows. At first it was hard to see. The creature's black scales blended perfectly with the darkness. But then it stepped forward and Taesung saw it clearly. The shadow predator was the size of a large dog but built like a nightmare. It had 6 legs that ended in curved claws. Its body was covered in overlapping scales that seemed to absorb light. The head was narrow and long with a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth. But the worst part was the eyes. They glowed red like hot coals, and they were focused entirely on the small alien girl. The creature moved slowly, stalking its prey. The girl was too scared to move. She just stood there trembling. Everyone else had run away. The merchants had abandoned their stalls. Guards were probably coming, but they would not arrive in time. Taesung did not think. He just acted. His legs carried him forward before his brain could tell him how stupid this was. He ran straight toward the girl and the monster behind her. His heart pounded in his chest. His hands were shaking. But he did not stop. He reached the girl just as the shadow predator lunged. Taesung grabbed her shoulders and threw her to the side. She tumbled to the ground, safe but shocked. The predator's trajectory did not change. It was already in midair, claws extended, mouth open wide. The creature hit Taesung like a hammer. They both crashed to the floor. The predator's weight drove the air from his lungs. He tried to push it away, but it was too strong. Then he felt the fangs sink into his arm. Pain exploded through his body. It was not like anything he had ever felt before. The venom burned like liquid fire in his veins. It spread from his arm to his shoulder, then to his chest. His vision blurred. His muscles stopped responding to his commands. He could not even scream. The shadow predator released him and stepped back. It seemed confused. Its prey should be dead already. The venom worked in seconds on most species, but the human boy was still breathing, still moving, even if barely. Bright lights suddenly filled the corridor. Station security had arrived with energy weapons drawn. They fired at the predator. forcing it to retreat into the shadows. The creature hissed and disappeared through a ventilation shaft. The guards did not pursue it. Their priority was the injured people. Tae-sung lay on the cold floor, clutching his arm. The bite marks were deep and already turning black around the edges. His whole body felt like it was on fire. Medical personnel rushed to his side. They scanned him with strange devices and spoke in urgent voices. Their words sounded far away, like he was underwater. The alien girl crawled over to him. Tears streamed down her blue face. She took his hand and held it tight. Her voice was soft when she spoke, thanking him over and over. She said her name was Bora. She said he saved her life. She said she was sorry. Tae-sung tried to tell her it was okay, but he could not form the words. The venom was spreading faster now. His heart was racing, trying to pump the poison through his system. The medics lifted him onto a stretcher and rushed him toward the medical bay. Bora followed, still holding his hand. In the medical bay, doctors from 3 different species worked on him. They injected him with anti-venom, but it did not seem to help. They used machines to filter his blood. They monitored his vital signs with growing concern. One doctor, a being with gray skin and wise eyes, shook his head sadly. Shadow predator venom was always fatal. There was no known cure, but something strange was happening. Tae-sung's body was fighting back. His cells were adapting to the venom, incorporating it rather than being destroyed by it. This should have been impossible. No known species could do this. Yet the human boy's vital signs began to stabilize. The black marks around the bite started to fade. His breathing became easier. Hours passed. Bora never left his side. Her parents arrived. Elegant beings in fine robes who carried themselves with authority. They spoke quietly with the doctors, their faces grave. When they learned what Tae-sung had done, they approached his bedside and bowed deeply. They introduced themselves as King Jae-hwan and Queen Hye-jin of the Velen people. Their daughter was their most precious treasure, and a human child had saved her. Tae-sung's father arrived shortly after, his face pale with worry. The station administrator had told him about the attack. He rushed to his son's side and held his hand. The man's eyes were wet with tears he tried to hide. Finally, Tae-sung opened his eyes. The pain had faded to a dull ache. His arm still hurt, but he could move it. He looked around at all the concerned faces staring at him. He managed a weak smile and asked what happened. The doctors exchanged amazed glances. This boy should be dead, yet here he was, awake and talking. But Tae-sung felt different. Something had changed inside him. His senses were sharper. He could hear conversations from far away. He could see details he never noticed before. And there was something else, something he could not quite explain, a whisper in the back of his mind, a presence that felt alien but somehow connected to him. He did not understand it yet. But he would soon discover that surviving the shadow predator's bite was only the beginning of his journey. 3 days passed before the doctors allowed Tae-sung to leave the medical bay. They wanted to monitor him constantly, checking his blood every few hours and running scan after scan. His recovery was unprecedented. The shadow predator venom should have killed him within minutes. Instead, his body had absorbed it and changed because of it. Tae-sung noticed the changes immediately. Everything looked brighter and more detailed. He could see dust particles floating in the air. He could read signs that were far down the corridor. When people walked past his room, he heard their conversations clearly, even through the closed door. Food tasted different too, more intense and complex. It was like experiencing the world for the first time. But the strangest change was the whisper in his mind. It started as a vague feeling, like someone watching him from a distance. Then it became stronger. He began to sense emotions that were not his own. Anger, fear, hunger, confusion. These feelings came and went like waves, and Tae-sung could not understand where they originated. Bora visited him every day. The young Velen girl brought him meals from her family's quarters, dishes that her mother prepared specially. The food was delicious, full of flavors that Tae-sung had never experienced. While he ate, Bora told him stories about her home world. She described cities made of crystal that reflected sunlight in rainbow patterns. She talked about gardens where flowers sang when the wind blew. She explained that her people valued peace above everything else. Violence was almost unknown on her world. The Velen focused on healing, art, and philosophy. Her father ruled with kindness, and her mother was the greatest healer their people had ever known. Tae-sung asked why they were on Waypoint 7. Bora's expression turned sad. She explained that her parents were trying to negotiate peace between two warring species. The Velen often served as mediators in galactic conflicts. They had been at the station for weeks, but the negotiations were not going well. That was why she had been in the market alone. She just wanted to see something beautiful and forget about the angry meetings for a while. She felt guilty that Tae-sung got hurt protecting her. She said it over and over, apologizing until he finally made her stop. He told her he would do it again without hesitation. Some things were more important than safety. She stared at him with her large eyes and smiled. She said humans were strange and wonderful. On the fourth day, something changed. Tae-sung was lying in bed trying to rest when the whisper became a roar. Emotions flooded his mind with overwhelming force. Rage, desperation, a desperate need for freedom. He sat up gasping, his heart racing. The feelings were so strong he could barely think. Then he understood. The shadow predator. These emotions were coming from the creature that bit him. It was locked somewhere in the station, probably in a containment cell, and it was suffering. The realization hit Tae-sung like a physical blow. He was connected to the predator. The venom had created a bond between them. He called for the doctors and tried to explain. They listened with skeptical expressions. One doctor suggested the venom might have damaged his brain. Another thought he was experiencing hallucinations. But Tae-sung insisted. He could feel the predator. He knew it was real. Bo-ra believed him. She convinced her parents to investigate. King Jae-hwan brought in specialists from his own people, scientists who studied rare phenomena across the galaxy. They examined Tae-sung with sophisticated equipment and discovered something remarkable in his neural patterns. There was a connection, a pathway that should not exist. It linked his mind to something distant. The lead scientist was a Velen woman named Yuna. She had white hair and wore simple robes covered in strange symbols. She studied the scans for hours before speaking. When she finally looked at Tae-sung, her eyes were full of wonder. She told him that he had formed a neural bond with the shadow predator. The venom had rewritten parts of his genetic code, allowing his nervous system to sync with the creature's. This should have been impossible. Shadow predator venom killed by attacking the nervous system. It destroyed neural pathways and shut down brain function. But human biology was different. Humans evolved on a world so dangerous that their bodies learned to adapt to almost anything. Instead of dying, Tae-sung's cells had incorporated the venom and used it to create something new. King Jae-hwan asked if this was dangerous. Yuna admitted she did not know. Nothing like this had ever been recorded, but she suggested that Tae-sung might be able to communicate with the predator. If the bond worked both ways, he could send thoughts as well as receive them. Tae-sung wanted to try. His father was worried, but he agreed to let his son attempt it. They brought Tae-sung to the detention level where the shadow predator was being held. The creature was in a reinforced cell with energy barriers. Guards stood watch with weapons ready. When Tae-sung entered the room, the predator stopped moving. It had been pacing back and forth, slamming against the barriers. But now it went still, its glowing red eyes fixed on the human boy. Tae-sung felt the creature's attention like heat on his skin. He approached the cell slowly. The guards tensed, ready to pull him back. But Tae-sung raised a hand, asking them to wait. He stopped a few feet from the barrier and closed his eyes. He reached out with his mind, following the bond that connected them. At first, there was only confusion. The predator's thoughts were alien and hard to understand, but Tae-sung persisted. He sent feelings instead of words. Calm. Safety. Peace. He tried to show the creature that he meant no harm. The shadow predator responded. Its emotions changed from rage to curiosity. It tilted its head, studying him. Then it moved closer to the barrier. The guards gripped their weapons tighter, but the creature made no aggressive moves. It simply sat down and continued staring at Tae-sung. Tae-sung felt something incredible flow through the bond. Memories. Not his own, but the predator's. He saw images of a dark world covered in strange forests. He felt what it was like to hunt under twin moons. He experienced the terror of being captured, caged, and transported across space. The creature had been ripped from its home and sold to smugglers. It escaped on the station because it was desperate and scared. Tears ran down Tae-sung's face. The predator was not a monster. It was a frightened animal far from home. It attacked Bo-ra because it was confused and hungry. It bit Tae-sung because it thought it was defending itself. The creature had only been trying to survive. Taesung sent back his own memories. He showed the predator his life on Earth. He shared feelings of family, safety, and belonging. He promised that people would help. The creature would not be hurt anymore. Through the bond, Taesung felt the predator's emotions shift. The rage faded. The fear lessened. Hope appeared for the first time. The shadow predator lay down in its cell and closed its eyes. Its breathing became slow and steady. It was the first time the creature had relaxed since being captured. The guards lowered their weapons in amazement. Yuna recorded everything with her instruments, muttering in excitement. King Jaehuan placed a hand on Taesung's shoulder. The Velen monarch spoke softly, telling the boy that he had done something remarkable. He had reached across the gap between species and found understanding. This was a gift that could change the galaxy, but the king also looked troubled. He said that news of this bond would spread quickly. The Galactic Council would want to know about it. They would have questions. They might even have demands. Taesung's life was about to become much more complicated. That night, Taesung could not sleep. He lay in bed feeling the shadow predator's dreams through their bond. The creature dreamed of home, of hunting under alien stars, and Taesung understood that this connection was permanent. They were linked now, forever bound by the venom that should have killed him. He named the creature Kale, which meant shadow in an old Earth language. Through the bond, he felt Kale's acceptance of the name. The predator understood. They were no longer enemies. They were something new, something that had never existed before, and together, they would face whatever came next. The massive ship arrived exactly 2 weeks after the incident. It was called the Council's Will, and it was the largest vessel Taesung had ever seen. The ship stretched for miles, covered in silver armor that reflected the stars. Blue lights pulsed along its surface like a heartbeat. Smaller ships flew around it in precise formations. Taesung watched from the observation deck as the ship docked with Waypoint 7. Bora stood beside him, her hand clasped tightly in his. She was nervous. Her parents had warned her that the Galactic Council was powerful and sometimes ruthless. They made decisions that affected billions of lives, and now they wanted to meet the human boy who bonded with a shadow predator. The council delegation arrived with great ceremony. Guards in elaborate armor marched through the station corridors. Officials from dozens of species followed, carrying data pads and scanning equipment. At the center of this group walked High Arbiter Dal Neem, the leader of the delegation. Dal Neem belonged to the Kess species. She had 4 arms, each ending in 3-fingered hands. Her skin looked like polished gray stone, and her eyes were deep black pools without visible pupils. She wore robes of deep purple with golden symbols that marked her rank. When she entered a room, everyone stopped talking and bowed. The first meeting took place in a conference room that King Jaehuan had reserved. Taesung sat between his father and Bora, feeling small and out of place. Across the table, Dalneem studied him with those black eyes. Her expression revealed nothing. The other council members whispered among themselves, pointing at him and making notes. Dalneem spoke in a voice that was calm and measured. She thanked Taesung for his brave actions in saving Bora. She acknowledged that his survival was remarkable. Then she got to the real reason for her visit. The council wanted to study the bond between Taesung and the shadow predator. They believed this connection could help solve problems across the galaxy. She explained that many worlds suffered from attacks by dangerous predator species. These creatures destroyed settlements, killed colonists, and made entire regions unsafe. Military forces tried to fight them, but predators were difficult to track and almost impossible to communicate with. If Taesung's bond could be understood and replicated, it might save countless lives. Taesung's father stood up abruptly. His face was red with anger. He said that his son was not a laboratory experiment. The boy had nearly died. He deserved to go home and live a normal life. The council had no right to demand anything from him. Dalneem remained calm. She said that she was not demanding anything. She was requesting cooperation. But she also pointed out that humanity was still new to galactic society. Earth had only limited representation in the council. If humans refused to help with important research, it might affect how other species viewed them. Isolation could be dangerous in a galaxy full of conflicts. The threat was clear even though Dalneem spoke politely. Taesung felt Bora squeeze his hand. King Jaehuan leaned forward and proposed a compromise. Taesung would go to the council's research facility. He would cooperate with their scientists, but Bora would accompany him as a representative of the Velen people. The king would also arrange for a guardian, someone who could protect Tai-Sung's interests. Delneem considered this for a long moment. Then she agreed. She even suggested a guardian herself. Commander Wu Jin was a human officer who served in the Galactic Defense Force. He had a distinguished record and was known for his integrity. He would be perfect for the role. Tai-Sung met Commander Wu Jin the next day. The man was tall and muscular with short black hair and a face marked by old scars. He wore a military uniform covered in medals and insignia. When he shook Tai-Sung's hand, his grip was firm but not crushing. His eyes were sharp and intelligent. Wu Jin spoke bluntly. He told Tai-Sung that being human in space was not easy. Most aliens saw humans as weak because they came from a death world. They assumed Earth's harsh environment broke humanity rather than strengthening it. Wu Jin had spent years proving them wrong. He had fought in battles, led missions, and earned the respect of species that initially dismissed him. He said that Tai-Sung now had an opportunity to show what humans could do. The bond with Kale was special. It proved that humans could adapt to things that killed other species. But Tai-Sung needed to be careful. The council was watching. Some members wanted to use humans. Others feared them. Tai-Sung's actions would shape how the galaxy saw his entire species. The commander promised to teach Tai-Sung how to survive. He would train the boy in combat, strategy, and diplomacy. When they reached the research facility, Tai-Sung would be ready for anything. Saying goodbye to his father was the hardest thing Tai-Sung had ever done. They stood in the docking bay where the council ship waited. Tai-Sung's father held him tight, not wanting to let go. He made his son promise to stay safe and come home. He gave Tai-Sung a data pad loaded with messages and pictures from Earth. It would help him remember where he came from. The journey to the research facility took 5 days. The council ship was luxurious inside, with quarters that felt like small apartments. Tai-Sung shared a section with Bora and her parents. Kale traveled in a special containment unit that allowed him to move freely while staying secure. Through their bond, Tai-Sung felt Kale's confusion about the journey. The Predator did not understand where they were going, but he trusted Tai-Sung. Commander Wu Jin spent hours each day training Tai-Sung. They started with basic self-defense. The commander taught him how to fall without getting hurt, how to break holds, and how to use an opponent's strength against them. Tai-Sung learned quickly. His enhanced reflexes, gained from the bond with Kale, made him faster than normal humans. Wu Jin noticed this and adjusted the training accordingly. Bora showed Tai-Sung recordings of her homeworld during their free time. The images were breathtaking. Crystal towers rose into pink skies. Gardens floated on platforms held up by some invisible force. Waterfalls flowed upward in defiance of gravity. The Velen had mastered technology so advanced it seemed like magic. Yet they used it only to create beauty and help others. She told him about Velen philosophy. Her people believed that all life was connected. Violence against any living thing damaged the whole universe. This was why they became mediators and healers. They wanted to fix the damage that others caused. Bora admitted that her people were sometimes seen as weak. They had little military strength, but they had influence because everyone trusted them. The research facility appeared on the 5th day. It orbited a massive gas giant with swirling purple and orange clouds. The facility itself was shaped like a ring, rotating slowly to create artificial gravity. Hundreds of windows dotted its surface and docking bays lined its outer edge. Small ships came and went constantly. When they docked, scientists were waiting to greet them. They came from dozens of species, each eager to study Tai-Sung and Kale. Some looked friendly and curious. Others seemed nervous or even frightened. Tai-Sung felt like a specimen under a microscope. He did not like it, but he understood why it was necessary. Delneem showed them to their quarters, which were comfortable but clearly monitored. Cameras watched every corner. Sensors tracked their movements. The High Arbiter explained that this was for everyone's safety. The facility studied dangerous phenomena. Security was essential. That night, Tai-Sung stood at the window of his room and stared at the gas giant below. Its storms raged across its surface, beautiful and terrifying. He felt Kale's presence through their bond. The Predator was restless in his containment unit. Tomorrow, the testing would begin. Scientists would probe and measure and analyze. They would try to understand something that Tai-Sung himself barely comprehended. He touched the data pad his father gave him. Pictures of Earth appeared on the screen. Green forests, blue oceans, mountains touching clouds, home, it seemed so far away now. Tae-sung wondered if he would ever see it again. He wondered what the tests would reveal. And he wondered if the bond that saved his life would end up changing the entire galaxy. Only time would tell. The first test started badly and ended worse. Scientists brought Tae-sung into a large white room with observation windows on all sides. They asked him to sit in the center. Then they brought Kale in through a reinforced door. The shadow predator wore a collar that could deliver electric shocks if he became aggressive. Tae-sung hated seeing it on his bonded companion. The scientists wanted to measure the bond. They attached sensors to Tae-sung's head and monitored his brain activity. They released Kale from his restraints and told Tae-sung to communicate with him. It should have been simple. Tae-sung had done this before. But the test room was wrong. The lights were too bright. The air smelled of chemicals. Machines hummed with electronic noise. Everything felt hostile. Kyle felt it too. Through their bond, Tae-sung sensed the predator's rising panic. This place reminded Kale of the cages where smugglers kept him. It brought back memories of pain and fear. The predator paced back and forth, his claws clicking on the metal floor. His red eyes darted around, looking for escape routes. Tae-sung tried to send calming thoughts through the bond. He projected images of safety and peace, but Kale's emotions were too strong. Fear turned to desperation. The predator needed to escape. He needed to run. The walls were closing in. The bright lights burned. The chemical smell choked him. Then Kale's desperation flooded through the bond into Tae-sung. The boy gasped as the emotion hit him like a physical blow. He could not breathe. His heart raced. His vision blurred. He was experiencing what Kale felt, and it was overwhelming. The bond pulsed with energy. Stronger than ever before, alarms started blaring. The energy collar around Kale's neck sparked and failed. The predator roared and lunged at the reinforced door. His claws tore through metal like paper. Scientists screamed and ran for the exits. Security guards rushed in with weapons raised, but Kale did not attack anyone. He ran straight to Tae-sung and stopped in front of the boy. The predator's sides heaved with panicked breathing. His eyes were wide and wild. Then he did something that shocked everyone watching. Kale lowered his head and pressed it against Tae-sung's chest. The gesture was unmistakable. The predator was asking for help. Tae-sung wrapped his arms around Kale's neck. He whispered softly, telling the predator that everything would be okay. Through the bond, he sent waves of comfort and protection. Slowly, Kale's breathing steadied. His muscles relaxed. The wild look faded from his eyes. Within minutes, the dangerous situation was over. The predator sat calmly beside Tae-sung, refusing to move away from him. Dalnim stood in the observation room, staring down at them. Her expression was unreadable, but her 4 hands were clasped tightly together. She spoke into a communicator, giving orders to secure the room but not harm either Tae-sung or Kyle. Then she called for an emergency meeting. That evening, King Jae-hwan summoned Scholar Yuna from his homeworld. The elderly Velen arrived within hours, traveling through a quantum gate that connected major worlds. She was the same historian who had first identified Tae-sung's bond. When she saw the test recordings, her white eyebrows rose in amazement. Yuna gathered everyone in a conference room. Tae-sung sat with Bo-ra and Commander Woo-jin. Dalnim attended with several council members. King Jae-hwan and Queen Hye-jin listened from their seats. Kale lay at Tae-sung's feet, calm now but alert. The scholar began by asking Tae-sung to describe what he had seen through the bond. The boy explained the visions that Kale had shared. He talked about the predator's homeworld, about being captured and sold, about the fear and confusion. Then he mentioned something he had not told anyone before. During their strongest connections, Tae-sung had seen older memories. Ancient images that could not possibly belong to Kale alone. Yuna leaned forward with intense interest. She asked him to describe these ancient memories. Tae-sung closed his eyes and focused. He saw shadow predators living alongside other species in harmony. He saw them working with warriors not as pets or slaves, but as true partners. He saw ceremonies where bonds were formed deliberately, not by accident. These memories were thousands of years old. Yuna nodded slowly. She told them about the First Unity, an ancient civilization that existed long before the Galactic Council. The First Unity brought dozens of species together in peace. One of their greatest achievements was the practice of bonding warriors with powerful predator species. These bonds made both parties stronger and helped maintain order across thousands of worlds. But the first unity fell in a great war. Most of their knowledge was lost. The bonding practice was forgotten. Shadow predators and other predator species lost their partners and became wild. Over generations, they forgot their true nature. They became the monsters that people feared today. Yuna explained that the bonds worked through genetic exchange. The predator's venom carried genetic information. When it entered a compatible host, it rewrote parts of their DNA to create a neural link. But the venom was deadly to most species. Their bodies rejected it and died. Only a species with extremely adaptable biology could survive the process. Humans were that species. Evolution on Earth had made human bodies incredibly flexible. They could adapt to poisons, diseases, and environmental extremes that killed others. This adaptability was exactly what the bonding process required. Humans were not just compatible with shadow predators. They might be compatible with many predator species. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Commander Wu Jin was the first to speak. He pointed out that this made humans extremely valuable. If humanity could bond with dangerous predators, they could help bring peace to troubled regions. But it also made humans targets. Some species would want to control them. Others would fear them. Dalnim stood and walked to the window. She stared out at the stars for a long moment. When she turned back, her voice was thoughtful. She said that the Council had a decision to make. They could try to exploit humanity's abilities, treating humans as tools, or they could welcome humans as equals and help them develop their potential safely. She surprised everyone by choosing the second option. Dalnim said she would recommend full membership for humanity in the Galactic Council. But first, Taesung needed to prove that the bonds could be used for good. There was a crisis that required immediate attention. A colony world called New Haven was under attack by a pack of wild shadow predators. Conventional weapons barely hurt them. Hundreds of colonists were trapped and running out of supplies. Dalnim asked if Taesung and Kale would help. If they could calm the predators without killing them, it would prove that bonds were valuable. It would show that humans deserved a place among the stars. The request was dangerous, but Taesung did not hesitate. He agreed immediately. Bora grabbed his hand and said she was going too. Her mother could help heal any injuries. Her father's diplomatic skills might be useful. Commander Wu Jin volunteered to lead a security team. King Jae-hwan looked at his daughter with pride and concern, but he did not forbid her. He knew she had made her choice. They left the next morning on a fast courier ship. The journey to New Haven took 3 days. During that time, Taesung trained with Wu Jin even harder. He needed to be ready for anything. The commander taught him how to move silently, how to read tracks, and how to predict predator behavior. Taesung absorbed everything like a sponge. Through the bond, Taesung felt Kale's anticipation. The predator sensed they were approaching others of his kind. He was excited but also nervous. These wild predators had never been bonded. They might not understand what Taesung was trying to do. They might attack anyway. New Haven appeared as a small green world orbiting a yellow star. It looked peaceful from space, but Taesung knew the truth. Down on the surface, people were hiding in fear. Predators circled their settlement, searching for a way in. Time was running out. They landed at night during a thunderstorm. Lightning flashed across dark clouds. Rain pounded against their ship's hull. The colonists had sealed themselves in underground shelters. Their distress signal led the rescue team to the main settlement. Taesung could feel the wild predators through his bond with Kyle. There were 12 of them, all confused and frightened. They were not evil monsters. They were lost animals far from home, just like Kale had been. But they were also dangerous. Fear made them aggressive. They would kill if threatened. Commander Wu Jin positioned his security team around the perimeter. Bora and her mother waited near the ship, ready to help if anyone got hurt. King Jae-hwan monitored everything from orbit, prepared to intervene if necessary. Everyone was tense. Everyone was scared. But they trusted Taesung. Taesung and Kale walked forward into the storm. Rain soaked through his clothes. Lightning illuminated the predators circling in the darkness. Red eyes glowed like coals. Low growls rumbled like thunder. This was the moment that would change everything. Taesung took a deep breath and reached out through the bond, hoping the wild predators would listen.